Hey there, welcome to 2020. I'm so excited to be here. I got some big plans personally this year and also professionally. As you can see behind me, Ignite Wellness is shifting physical locations from this commercially leased spot to back on my home. Actually, we built, it's called the Zen Den now because it's so much more than a shed, and I'm super excited to show it with you. So you guys will see this in a few weeks, but over the weekend, my husband and I, we moved one of the walls to the shed to see how long it would take us, how it all fit in, and it looks amazing in there, and I'm so excited. So I can't wait to show you guys, but in the meantime, just to let you know that there's also some shifts in the business too. I am releasing it's a free webinar. It's coming up on the low back. It's going to be a lot of tips to help reduce worry of back pain. So if you ever feel like you're not sleeping at night because you're worrying about the future of your back, if you're aging and you feel like it's all going downhill, if you have some nagging aches and pains, or you're not able to do the activities that you love to do, then you can get registered for this webinar. I'll put the link in the comments below, and you can get registered. The seats are now open. And also there's a workshop if you're local to San Diego at Prana Yoga Studio this Saturday, and it's going to be on the low back. So a couple things coming up right out the gate of 2020. And that's what I want to talk with you about, because a lot of you set resolutions or New Year's goals for 2020, and I hear this all the time, like as people try to decide what they want for their health, for their future, they often make resolutions or goals based upon what other people told them they should do, or maybe what they heard from an online source, or maybe just various podcasts. All these things, they create a resolution that it's based off a good intention, meaning that they think it'll serve them well or fulfill a health goal. However, it's not the best intention for them because it's based off what they should do. So there's a lot of forcing and pushing instead of maybe what they feel that it's based upon what someone else is telling them to do, and totally blanked there. Not what they want, instead of what they feel that they should do. So the point is that you should go listen to the podcast, because I do an interview with Amy Clover, and she puts it much better than I. It's a lot of times we base these health goals like, okay, so if I'm going to lose 5 pounds, for example, I have to go to the gym, I have to work out for an hour, I have to grunt it out, I have to do blood, sweat, and tears to lose this weight, because they feel like it's what I should do, instead of really tuning in and listening to the body and doing what you really need, or what your body really calls for. So letting go of the pushing, letting go of what you think should happen, and instead just follow and nurture yourself and listen to your body and do what it tells you instead. So more on this, there's a podcast. I just released it with Amy Clover, and she does a much more elegant job than I just did explaining all that. But essentially, I just walk through this type of scenario. Just this morning, I was working with a patient that wants to continue to surf. He likes to surf for a few hours each day, and right now is having some low back pain following surfing. So we're creating an individualized program for him that gets him out in the water, and then obviously helps to reverse that effects of surfing, which can be tightening in some ways, or pressure on the spine during pop-ups, that sort of thing, to reverse those activities so then he feels better later on in the day instead of suffering because he was out in the water. And how does it really get there? It's first, the steps to this is really creating a vision. Like, where do you want to go for 2020? What's your ideal? So let's take this specific scenario. It's This person's vision is to get out in the water more days than not and surf for 2 to 3 hours and then have no pain following, right? Okay, so that's the vision. What are the obstacles that are going to hinder this vision? So maybe it's time. For this person, it's lack of flexibility in the hips, for example. What are the resistance? And that can be physically or even emotionally. What are your mental blocks towards achieving this vision? And often if you address each of those obstacles or the resistance step by step, then that can give you a few different scenarios or a few different paths to achieving that overall vision, right? So for this person that wants to get out in the water surfing for a few hours each day, we created a few different scenarios for him to trial and error. So it's involving just getting out in the water and surfing and then stretching after, for example. Another scenario is doing a warm-up of some type, like walking up and down a hill, like, because if you live in San Diego, then you know some of the nice surfing areas like Black's Beach or Scripps have hills. So walking, getting the heart rate going, getting the legs warmed up, walking the hill a few times before getting in the water and then stretching afterwards. Or maybe for this person, they need to actually do a targeted hip stretching sequence, then surf, and then do another round of spinal decompression exercises after. And how do you know, right? There's never one way to achieve a goal, right? For each person, based upon logistics of their life, patterning, all this sorts of stuff, what's available to them, resources, everything like that, there's many, many different paths to getting to the same goal. So two people can have the same exact vision, same exact goal, but they're gonna get there very different ways. And that's where sometimes we go wrong with health. You know, you might have the same goal as their neighbor, for example, to lose 5 pounds. Or you might have the same goal as your neighbor to get rid of the sciatic pain down the back. But based upon what's actually happening in your life versus your neighbor's life, you're going to have very different ways to get there. And sometimes we do this comparison act. Well, my neighbor's doing this, so then I have to do this. Or my neighbor's doctor told them to do this, and it's working like magic for them, so then I have to do this, right? So if we let go of all that stuff, of what we think we should do to get to our path, whether that's a health goal or a business goal or whatever it is for you that you really want to achieve to 2020, you really have to let go of the comparison. You really have to let go of what other people are doing and put blinders on and focus on what you need to do. And the only way to figure out what you need to do is trial and error different scenarios. Hi there, Chris. Good afternoon. Is try out different scenarios, and then what's often doesn't happen after that is you need to record. So for let's take my surfer patient from this morning, like he's gonna do those scenarios, each of them in segmented blocks. And then hi there. And then he's going to record the outcome for each of them. So then he can compare within for himself what works best for his body. And then within that, whatever works best, then we can tweak that. So Chris, do you have any New Year's resolutions or goals or tips or strategies that you do for completing them? You can share below if you want. And then it's trial and error. You have to try one thing. If it doesn't work, try something else. And then once you find something that works, then within that one thing that you found was successful, then you tweak that. And then it's just rinse and repeat. And I think that's what happens in February, March, April, is that a lot of us get into either the trial and error or the rinsing and repeating, and it's monotonous and it's tedious and it's boring, and we forget, and we just find it uncomfortable, and we just let it go. And that's where often we lose sight of the vision and don't really achieve that end goal that we desired. And that's one lesson that I really learned from 2019 was just having a vision and then just trial and error a bunch of different things, sticking what works, and then refining and rinsing and repeating. And I actually had the most successful year for my business yet. Thank you, all of you. And I'm super excited to bring all this new stuff in for you guys for 2020. So I'm practicing what I'm preaching in my own life, and I'm just sharing with you what works, so then hopefully I can save you guys some time. So again, if you want to learn a bit more, then head over to the podcast. You can listen to Amy. She really specializes in this, letting go of all the shoulds and focusing on what you need. And because it's Facebook Live, and when I did this interview about a year ago, or maybe less than that, the connection was lost. So it was towards the end of the interview anyways, it was cut off. So the good news is, because of this, she agreed to come back on, and I'm going to interview her again in a few weeks, so then you'll get part 2 of this. So stay tuned, but there's a ton of information in part 1. So head over to the podcast if you want to share any of your New Year's resolution tips below, or success stories. I would love to hear it. But in the meantime, you can also head over to the link if you want to get registered for the webinar, or maybe I'll see you on the mat this Saturday at Prana for the low back workshop. All right, guys, have a great afternoon. Bye.